This is Mike Murphy here with the New Structure Ministries. Thanks for letting us into your home today. I hope everyone has a good Sunday. We have a lot going on in the spirit right now ever since the president, or Donald Trump, has been acquitted. It's kind of like opened up a portal for angelic activity to begin to really start disrupting the White House, Capitol Hill, and the departments up there in DC. So watch for a lot of angelic activity that's going to be bringing out and exposing things now, and things are going to happen very, very fast. You're going to see an acceleration take place, and because God is now, ready to put who He wants back in their respected offices and seats. So just get ready for that. Also, I want to just give everyone kind of a little exhortation. I've been thinking about hope a lot lately, and another word for hope is expectancy. And we really need to be staying in a state of expectancy for what the Lord is doing. If you lose your expectancy or you lose your hope, it's really hard to exercise love towards God and people, because you're not expecting God to be faithful. You're losing your expectancy. So you can only love people properly if you love God and He puts His love in your heart for people. So keep your expectancy high on what the Lord has shown you personally and corporately, for the body, for the nation. Another thing that can also take away your hope is if you have certain sins in your life that you're allowing in, that can steal your hope. And I remember I woke up from a dream. It was from back in my days, way back when I used to party. And I remember being out really late into the night, just partying and doing drugs and all these different things, and how there was just such a feeling of hopelessness. Even though I was saved, my sins have been forgiven, I was saved, there was this hopelessness that was always eating at you. And if you feel that, it could be because the Lord's wanting to show you that, you need to get rid of certain sin, or even if it's not necessarily like sin, we're not under the law of Moses, but just like weights. The book of Hebrews says, lay aside every sin and every weight so that you can run with patience. Now, with running with patience means, the real definition of the word patience is not just the ability to wait. Patience is knowing when to move, when God moves at the right time, and where to go where He goes. That's what patience is. So patience is waiting on God, yes, and then it's knowing when He moves, you move. You don't move before Him. You don't wait. You don't miss your time of visitation when God comes to do something new in your life. So patience is the ability in your spirit to know where to go and when to go. So like if you're just walking around and then all of a sudden God shifts and starts, to go with Him. That's patience. It's not just the ability to sit here and how long can I wait before I lose my cool. That's just a human definition of patience. So if we lay aside sins and weights that are putting us down, we can run with patience the race set before us, meaning we can run properly. We can run and go with God. If He's accelerating, we can accelerate. If He's shifting this way, we can shift. We can run with patience, meaning we can stay in the will of God and the timing of God. And there's a couple things that I've noticed in Christendom, which it seems like a lot of the big major churches that people that are real popular don't talk about, and that's staying in the timing of God and having that patience and staying in his timing and his will. Because it's really easy when you stay in the timing of God, you will have everything you need at all times. If you stay in timing, the concept of timing, I've talked to some people, they don't even understand what that means when I use the word timing. And timing is very, very, very important. I mean, if you're watching a movie, think of something and it's a good script writer and good acting, and they got you built up and you're waiting for a certain event to happen. The timing of it is how it gets you, you know. A lot of times if it comes when you're expecting it, it's like kind of boring, but then when it hits so God's timing is perfect, and you have to realize that your timing is not perfect. So you have to move in God's timing. And also this applies to the things we're waiting on when it comes to his word being fulfilled in our lives and in the nation, and corporately, that his timing is perfect. It's in Ecclesiastes, it says everything is beautiful in his time, meaning I can draw from that verse, it's not beautiful if it's not in his time. No matter how good the thing might seem, if it's not in the right time, it's not going to be beautiful. So God has a timing, you know, like to expose all this stuff in the nation, and when he does, it's going to be a beautiful thing. It's going to do the right thing. If he was to do it in the wrong timing, then it wouldn't be right. It wouldn't be as beautiful. So you got to run with patience. I mean, you got to run with God. You got to know when he's accelerating, when he's slowing down and stay right here, you got to get something, or when he's shifting you to turn this way. You got to be able to know that, and that's what patience is. That's why, so staying with God and constantly right in his will, you have all the favor you need, the provision you need, the resources you need, the anointing you need, the knowledge you need if you stay in that timing. That's why it equates patience with perfection. It says, let patience have its perfect work, that you may be perfect and complete, wanting or lacking nothing. So when patience does a work in you and you gain patience, you're lacking nothing because you're in God right there. You're smack dab in his will, and if you're smack dab in his will, he's going to make sure you're not lacking anything. You're going to be totally content in your heart, and you're going to have all the resources, whatever they are, the platform, money, connections with people, whatever it is, the knowledge you need, the vision you need, you're going to have it all if you stay in timing with God. So that's why it says, let patience have its perfect work in you. And this is something that needs to be talked about, patience. And it needs to be talked about correctly. Patience isn't, you lost your temper because of you were driving down the road and somebody cut in front of you and you lost your temper. That's not you lacking patience. That's you lacking self-discipline, but not patience, okay? Because you can't control if somebody cuts in front of you. So you start complaining about that, you just lack self-discipline. Patience is the ability to move with God to where you're always in his will. You can give thanks. Doesn't say give thanks for all things. It says give thanks in all things. So whatever you're going through, if you're exercising patience, meaning you're moving with God, then you can always stay in a state of thankfulness. And you can be thankful in all things. And when something happens that you don't necessarily like, you don't lose your cool because you have this contentment and this peace that's guarding your heart that is beyond understanding because you're right in the will of God and things don't move you and you don't complain about this and about that and all that. God's really big about not complaining. But if you don't have that contentment that you're right in the will of God, you're going to complain when you see things happen. So you need to I talk to somebody here at the staff. So I always talk about, I see the root, not the fruit. A lot of people like to just focus on the fruit. Why you did this, you shouldn't have. No, I want to go for the root. Why are you doing that? So we can nip it in the butt, so to speak, once for all. because it's going to manifest itself in numerous different parts of your life. If you're complaining, there's a reason. It's not just, hey, stop complaining. It's, why are you complaining? We need to figure this out. We need to go to the root. And the root of why somebody would complain is because they want to be in control, instead of understanding that if they're moving with God, He's in control and He's causing all things to work together for good. And if you lack that faith, then you're going to complain. And if you want to be the one in control of everything in your life and something goes wrong, you're going to complain. So you have to have that humble will that says, not my will but your will be done. It has to really be in your heart. And you have to have that patience, that you're moving with God, so whatever happens is for a reason. Like, what if some cars cut in front of you and slowed you down and got you home 10 minutes later, but it prevented you from getting in a wreck? You have to be able to see from a different perspective. And so when someone's in a state of complaining, it means that their perspective isn't correct. They're seeing from a human perspective. They're seeing from a down here, God's not in control. He's not working all things out together for good. And when I say God's not in control, I'm not saying God's in control of everything. God is not the reason why children are being raped. Sin is the reason, okay? But I'm saying that for you, as someone who's born again, you should be following the Lord. My sheep know my voice and they follow me. If you don't, you should be crying out to know Him and to know His voice. And when that happens, you stay in His will. And since you always are in His will, you are always in a state of thankfulness, not a state of complainatoriness. I just made that word up, but it makes sense. So basically, when you can get patience in your heart and you know that you're moving with God and He's causing all things to work together for your good, there's never a reason to complain, because everything's happening for my good. Maybe the reason that I'm stuck in traffic for an extra hour is because God's saving me from a car wreck. He's saving my life. Everything's working out for good. You have to see this. But first of all, you have to know that you're smack dab in the will of God. And that requires patience, the ability to move with God when He moves, the ability to say what God is saying when He's saying it. Like Jesus said, I do the things I see my Father do, and I say the things I hear my Father say. And ultimately, we're supposed to get to that level. So that's what the 5 gifts of Christ are. They call them the ascension gifts. They're given to the saints to equip them for the work of their ministry as they go out into all the mountains of the earth. A lot of them have political spheres, governmental spheres, educational spheres, business spheres. And we're on the fivefold ministers are equipping the saints to go do that, what they're supposed to do properly in their mountain, and bring the culture of God's kingdom. So that's a short little thing right there. But having sin in your life and being, it says we're children of the day and not of the night. And of course, that means a few different things. But I've noticed if you find yourself playing around at night a lot and going out and drinking and doing all this, it can take your hope away. It can take a lot of that away. So it's just when you're living right, you there's a confidence that you carry. It's a expectation, and it's not that God is doing this dependent on your own righteousness. But if any of you have children, you love all your children the same. But the children that obey you, that act good in public, that don't snap back at you, they're more pleasing to you. Okay, doesn't mean you love them anymore. So we're made in God's image. So if we can be some of God's children, bring Him more pleasure than others. And He doesn't love any of us better than any others, but by obeying God, we can bring Him pleasure by doing what he wants, whether it's you can hear His voice personally or through a prophet or however it is, or the best way God sees your heart. But anyway, so I just wanted to just give you all a little bit of that, a little bit of what I see happening. A lot of y'all might notice some shifts start to take place in your life. On the Hebrew calendar, we just stepped into the last month of the year. So you might be experiencing feels like some seasons kind of ending and maybe some seasons kind of starting. And so we call that being in a transition when something's ending and something's beginning. It's like a transition. So you might be out of your comfort zone for a little bit, but you'll settle back down soon, But I'm looking forward to some awesome things happening in this Hebraic month of the Feast of Purim when Esther rose to the throne for such a time as this. That's where that quote comes from. And I've been talking about timing all day just now pretty much. And so there's a time when you rise. There's a time when you have favor that you didn't have before, and you have to act on it. Esther couldn't sit there and think about it. She had to act on what Mordecai told her. She had to trust that Mordecai was hearing from the Lord or something, and she had to just go with it, and she had to take a risk. Living for God requires risk taking. Even though in God's sight it's not a risk, for our human minds, following God sometimes can seem like a risk. But that's just that has to become normal in your mind, that if I'm going to truly walk with the Lord, it's going to require some risk taking at times, and those are the times where your faith has grown the most. So when I get up here and I say so and so is being healed, that's a risk. I'm putting my entire reputation on the line. But whenever somebody comes back and says, right when you said that, I felt a change and I've been getting better ever since. Once these things happen enough, you just begin to trust God. You have your hope intact, your expectation. You know God's going to do it somehow, some way, somewhere. Even if it's 3 years down the road and somebody watching this video it happens with, it's going to happen. Once you've heard God enough and he's fulfilled his word enough, you just don't question. That's why he says not to lean on our own understanding. So when he comes and he wants obedience, he doesn't want it based off of how we understand it. He just wants it just surrendered to him. I'm going to obey. Maybe he usually ends up giving you the understanding later, but a lot of times he wants to see if you're going to obey without understanding. So, and that's what real trust is, because you don't understand, but you know it's God, so you do it anyway. It's called trust. It's kind of like if you had a spouse or a parent or something and they really asked you to do something and you didn't know why, but you trusted them and you did it anyway. So that's a good teaching. I've been on the phone with somebody about the book or in ads and different things, and we're really launching here at the ministry, and within the book, New Structure Volume 1, it outlines the church government. It's a very simple, too. It's a simple book. It outlines church government, the gifts of Christ, divine order, just a prophetic future that I see the church stepping into. And so that's coming soon, and if you want to go on the sonsofgod.net and sow, we appreciate it. If you want to specifically sow into that being published, we appreciate that. Just put a note on there for it. But I also was thinking this morning I might include a couple bonuses with the book. And what they would be was God actually gave me a chart of number meanings. And we know that if you've been walking with the Lord for a while, you know that numbers all have a meaning. We all know that 5 means grace and 8 means new beginnings, and different things like that. God gave me a chart one time from 1 to 100 and then even 1,000 of what it means and how to put them together. I'm thinking about putting that in the book. Also, the colors of the rainbow with the 7 spirits of the Lord, putting that in the book. And I believe dream interpretation has to happen by the Holy Spirit, but there are a couple of things, as I've been interpreting dreams for years, that I've noticed seem to go together a lot. I'm thinking about even putting that in the book. So the book's going to contain not just church government, proper church order, the gifts of Christ, how they work in a very simplified way, a prophetic vision of what I see us going into, but also some little charts that God purposely gave me that about colors and numbers, and when they pop up in dreams and visions, what they mean, that we found here at the ministry to be very helpful. So anyway, so that's coming. So anyway, I love y'all. Thanks for everything, and I will talk to you tomorrow.